So, revolutionary greetings, comrades. My name is Comrade PG Nodimwengu, because I'm from Kenya. And it's a pleasure once again to see all of you with us today. Greetings to all of you, Brother Kama, Brother Gonza, Brother Kwajo, Sister Aida, Brother Mauli. I see people from Ghana are full in the house. I see Mauli is here, Brother Kwajo is here, Brother Gonza is also in the other side, and Brother Kwame is also from away, Sister Aida is here. This is a Ghanaian conference, actually, the Ghanaian conference for liberation of the African continent. So it's a pleasure to see you around, and happy to have you again with us today. So today we'll be proceeding with our reading. The text is been highlighted, or I've highlighted the text on the screen. And basically, in the last almost 4 classes, we've been handling this Aristotle's thinking and his philosophy, and we are doing a continuation of that today. So it's a pleasure to see you around, and it's a pleasure for you to join us with us today. I'll request anybody who is willing to do the reading for us, and probably Brother Gonza, it's been a while. Are you able to do the reading for us? As usual in our tradition, we do the reading of the paragraph highlighted, or the text highlighted, then we go around to share our thinking. What do you think in regards to this paragraph? And I think we are in a stage where now Nkrumah is speaking to what actually Aristotle has been speaking about, or what Aristotle's philosophy ideology has been all about. So Nkrumah is speaking or responding at this particular level in these chapters. The last chapter, and I think this chapter as well. So, Brother Gonza, are you able to read for us the highlighted paragraph?
Can you hear me well?
Yes, you are loud and clear.
Oh, excellent, excellent. First of all,
Lewis, please mind the step from the train to the platform.
Okay. First of all, I want to thank the chair of this class and the consistency, towards enlightening our people and showing them showing all of us what is supposed to be done, because this is one of the most difficult thing to understand what must be done. And so I believe that the consensus class is going to play a very important role in the process of sharpening, the ideological sharpening of the revolutionaries. I was looking at I'm constantly looking at the Chinese Revolution and what happened there. That for people to carry out a revolution, they have to have some ideological basis. And at this particular point, I think that Nkrumah provides the groundwork for that. He provides the foundation for that work, and I believe that that work is found in concisely, where he tries to show us what must be done and how we must approach. So, with that being said, I believe that the concisely, has to play a very strong role. As I strongly believe that we have different parts of what is supposed to be done currently, which we have to gather and pull together for us to push forward, and then bring all these forces and push forward. But of course, we have to start somewhere. So I just want to recognize and appreciate the work that the consulting class is doing. And so I'm constantly encouraging my colleagues to join the class so that we can get clarity, because without clarity, people can be punching in different directions without really understanding what they are punching in. So thank you very much, the chair and the co-chair for the consistency and the whole class at large. So let me read the text as as I've been asked. Man, says Aristotle, aims at the good, but how can a continuing slave be said to aim at anything? According to Aristotle, the principle of order in a political society is justice, the bond of men in states. But what justice can slaves be said to enjoy? Aristotle, usually tough-minded, becomes all too delicate when he writes about slavery. At the same time, his writings about slavery have been distorted when he defines a slave as someone who is by nature not his own, but another's, a human being and yet a possession. Is he implying that there can be men who, by their own nature, as men, are not their own, but others? A man cannot be discovered to be a slave through an examination. Sorry, there was a call which was disturbing. And when he defines a slave as someone who is by nature not his own, but by another's, a human being, and yet a possession, is he implying that there can be men who, by their own nature as men, are not their own but others? A man cannot be discovered to be a slave through sorry guys, a man cannot be discovered to be a slave through an examination of his nature. What Aristotle means is that if someone is a slave, then it follows that he is not his own, but another's, a human being, and yet a possession.
Thank you, Brother Gonza, for the reading, and thank you for your actually compliments in regards to what you do. We do really appreciate this, and we do appreciate all you've done with us together. I'll be doing a second reading of this paragraph. Again, slowly, but please, not take time to understand the text, form your thinking, so that as I start now calling names, as I'll be going through the list, I hope you'll be all having something to share in terms of your thinking. I'd shared this text before, but I wanna do it again very slowly.
Why?
Yes, Brother Kwame.
Why do you have to read it again? Yeah, why do you have to read it again? I'm just asking.
Members, I feel
I'm
I
just
should be
asking.
doing a reading again because there was some hiccups with the Gonza. Okay, let me read it again. Man, says Aristotle, aims at the good. But how can a continuing slave be said to aim at anything? According to Aristotle, the principle of order in a political society is justice. The bond of men in states. But what justice can slaves be said to enjoy? Aristotle, usually tough-minded, becomes all too delicate when he writes about slavery. At the same time, his writings about slavery have been distorted when he defines a slave as someone who is by nature not his own, but another's, a human being, and yet a possession. Is he implying that there can be men who by their own nature as men are not their own, but others? A man cannot be discovered to be a slave through an examination of his nature. What Aristotle means is that if someone is a slave, then it follows that he is not his own but another's, a human being, and yet a possession. So yes, this is our reading for today. And I'll go straight to ask members to share their thinking. Brother Kwame, will you want to come in for any clarification or anything for now?
No, ask if anyone wants any party.
Okay, Brother Kwame. So let me go through my order list. Brother Carrington, I don't know your name come first because you're having a C, same as conscientism. But my order of list is saying Carrington, Ida, and ACUP. So I'll have to go with that order. because that's what is in my screen, unless I'll be confused. If another C come before him, then probably I'll consider that before you speak. So greetings, Brother Carrington. Please feel free to share with us your thinking.
Thank you very much, Brother Pigeon. Thank you very much, Brother Kwame. Brothers and sisters, I hope you are fine. Yes, so this paragraph to me basically communicates the philosophical problems that we have spoken about for the last 2 or 3 weeks with Aristotle's social, ethical, moral philosophy, right? I had earlier stated my position that basically Aristotle begins with very, very iron-cast principles of justice, law, equality, equal contribution to society according to capacity, etc., etc., etc. But he then comes from the foundations to very weak wood and paper of a slave agricultural society. And a slave agricultural or mercantile society. Greek society was both agricultural and trade-based. And now he starts to struggle with himself because you've started with very heavy foundations of justice and law, and then you find such, let's say, awkward realities in your society. And Aristotle is not ready to reject this awkwardness of his society, depending on the physical principles that he has set up. So he ends up compromising in my interpretation and understanding his principles, the foundational principles of his work. And therefore, this is the result. The result is a bunch of awkward questions asked by Kwame Nkrumah. So, one, the question of good. So, you are saying a society is optimized in some way to search for good, for the good of all. This is why we come together to do things. This is why I don't live alone in a forest. But somehow this society I participate in needs to enslave an entire class of people, whether they are foreign, whether they are local or not, to achieve its good. What good are these slaves enjoying? What justice are these slaves enjoying? Yeah. Now, because these questions cannot be answered from the point of view of equality of man, they cannot actually be answered. Aristotle has to surrender the philosophy of egalitarianism. And remember, we have discussed that equality is not similarity, but equality is some fundamental intellectual, spiritual, moral equality of human beings. So, this is what Aristotle has to say.
Sorry, brother Carrington, can you repeat that again? Intellectual, yeah, repeat that again.
So, man is not equal because every man or human beings are not equal because all men have 2 legs or 2 hands.
I'm interested in the intellectual, that part.
So intellectually meaning that human beings, of course, there are human beings who can be said to be intellectually and educationally gifted. Let me finish, Brother Kwame. But you asked me a question. Let me finish first. So let me finish first.
I just wanted to hear those words you use. That
similarly, I am not as moral as Jesus Christ, probably. If we assume Jesus Christ was moral, I am not as spiritually sophisticated as our ancestors, for example. However, I still qualify as a human being because I have these concepts in me. I carry this consciousness of these concepts, all these concepts in me. And in that sense, I qualify as a human being. So that is where this equality comes from. Not really in physical traits, intellectual traits, actual spiritual traits. So that is fair. Now, because of this, Aristotle surrenders this question of equality and says a slave, for some reason, by their nature or for some reason, has the capacity of being a possession, like land, like, I don't know, maize, like something like that, has the capacity because of limitations, because of certain differences with other human beings, has the capacity of being a slave, okay? Of being a possession. And for this reason, it is just that a slave belongs to another human being. But now, the Osajefo is now asking, okay, let's ignore, right? Let's ignore the fact that the said person is a slave and ask, what are their specific characteristics which you can point to and say, because of this, they are supposed to be slaves. Okay, the story the Americans told in the South is that Africans could not speak English, could not read English properly. They were not subject to education, etc., etc., right? But at the same time, they banned our African ancestors taken away from us from actually being able to read and read the Bible and read other books. When they were given these books, when the Africans got access to these books, they were actually able to understand the Bible very quickly and use this information and information from newspapers and the Constitution to help liberate themselves. So, with the help again of the American North. So, what is this thing that you can point to, not just in the conditions of Southern America, but anywhere in the world where there is an enslavement? What are these conditions you can point to and say these are the reasons why it is right for this man, this woman, this child to be a slave? The Osajefo cannot find a good answer for this, and therefore he concludes that Aristotle is using a circular definition of slavery, that a slave is a slave because they are a slave. And therefore these circular definitions, because of logic, are weak. They must be reconsidered. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Carrington. But before I leave you,
Brother Carrington, sorry, Brother Chair, Brother Carrington, don't run away from my question.
I'm not actually.
So what did you say makes us equal again? Use the word intellectual. That's the part I'm interested in.
So, I believe we are equal on the basis of intellectual, moral, spiritual reasons. Now, in terms of,
I wanted to hear that.
Yeah.
So if that is the case, does it follow that someone who lacks intellect and is not spiritual, does that mean they are not equal?
Yes, I have just addressed that. So, someone who lacks an intellect, someone who lacks spirituality, someone who lacks these moral activities, all of this stuff cannot exist. That is the simple fact. So, for example, let's think about this. A monkey, yes, cannot have the intellectual properties, spiritual and moral properties of even the dumbest human being you've ever met. Even our African politicians, they cannot be compared to monkeys because there is a clear difference between the two classes of people. Although we agree that our African politicians are either incredibly immoral or incredibly foolish or a combination of both. But they are still human beings because it occurs on a distribution like that. So whoever is within this distribution is a human being, depending on how extreme they are, independent of how extreme they are in this distribution.
Brother Carrington, the reason I asked you is that when I heard you say it first, it sounded to me like you were giving an idealist definition of equality.
No,
That's
it's
why, because
complete.
you were focusing on intellect, which is the mind, morality, which is something to do with our actions, what we do, and then also spirituality, which again to do with the spiritual side of us. So that things to do with spirituality, intellect, are things that are inside us. So that's why I was asking. So
But
that which makes us equal, as you've said, is that we share the same physical humanity. It's nothing to do with intellect, spirituality. It's the fact that we come from the same matter, which, as a physicist, you know, carbon, hydrogen, oxygen, those things. Yeah.
Brother Kwame, can I challenge you?
That is why I asked. Yeah. Yes, please do.
But cows also have carbon
Yes.
and blood and
Yes. That is why some say that we are also animals at some level. And it doesn't. In fact, there are those who argue that animals also have rights, so they call it animal
yes.
rights. Therefore, human beings should not be eating cows and so on. As you know, one of the problems between Hindus and Muslims in India was that the Hindus they don't worship the cow, but some say they worship the cow, but actually what it is they revere the cow because they use it for farming, and the Muslims eat the cow. so that was, yeah. But yeah, no, you are right. So yes, there is some equality between us and animals because they have certain characteristics in terms of physical structure that we have. Yes. However, they are not human. They are not human beings.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so my feeling is that there can be materialist definitions of intellect, there can be material definitions of spirituality and morality.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah.
I agree. So that's why I was. So when I heard you at first, I thought, but the Carrington appears to be given an idealist definition of why we are equal, and I thought, let me hear that again. That's all. So,
Okay, thank you.
For those of you who don't know, brother, Carrington is our physicist, so he's the one that will correct all of us when we get the physics wrong. Brother Fijin, over to you. Thank you. I'm getting off this train, so I will be off for a while.
Okay, thank you, Brother Kwame, for coming in, and it's a pleasure always to come in. To all of you, Brother Kwame is our chair. I always just be a co-chair, but the chair is here. Some call him the philosopher, but you are all in the class of philosophy trying to be philosophers, because the struggle for African liberation requires some level of philosophy in us and some level of ideology in us, because if we don't grasp this, we may not be able to challenge people who are rooted with a deep philosophy and a very dangerous ideology. So we'll just be very universal. We just be very liberal and very conservative, but very liberal. At the end of the day, our liberality will affect our progress, which is then our progressiveness. So we need to back ourselves also with some ideology. I think it's Marcus who said that. Or is it Sankara who said a soldier without a political ideology is like a potential criminal? So, Sister, I'm here to you. Sister, you being part of course, GSE, we've been struggling with the reparations and actually challenges of enslavement, which is still bothering us today. How do these texts sit with you, Sister Ida?
I think I may have to pass on this. I've just got somewhere stable, so maybe a bit later, please. Thank you.
I'll still come back to you. So, comrades, as you all know, we are going through the text and we ask you to share what do you think out of the text. For the sake of the few people who have been here new, let me allow Brother Gonza and then Brother the King to go ahead. Then I'll come back to our new members who are also with us. Brother Gonza, then Brother the King. Can you share your thinking with us? How do this text sit? And Brother Gonza, I'd like you also to share this in context of our struggle in terms of the political struggle in the continent. And I know what you're actively in. How do this sit with you and how do you sit in our continent?
Absolutely. I was going even to touch on that, co-chair. So thank you very much. I think that Nkrumah here, there's a way, there's two ways in which I would look at what this paragraph is trying to to talk about, or what Nkrumah is trying to wrestle with. One, the society, the Greek society at that particular period, one can think of it that, okay, a slave was not a human being, and therefore Nkrumah's argument that is, about a slave being a human being, it doesn't hold water, or it doesn't, make sense. But when we look at Greek society at this particular period, there's certain instances where a slave graduated from being a slave to a person graduated from being a slave to a human being. So that is then where Nkrumah's argument, holds, Nkrumah holds a very strong argument in this particular situation that we are, facing in this particular point in time. So what I think is that Nkrumah is trying to challenge the Western definition of what a human being is, at the same time be, holding that human being in servitude. And even people like Dr. Martin Luther King wrestled with this question when he challenged the United States that our country, as the United States is to live to its true ideals. This is in the 60s, that the United States cannot continue to live half free and half slaves. And of course, this speaks to the fact that the United States, until 1964, when the Civil Rights Bill was signed, it was an apartheid state, basically, where Africans, people of African descent, were pushed on the other side. They sit on different places. When they come to the buses, they stand up, so that a white person can sit and stuff like that. They drink water on different fountains and stuff like that. And yet, this is a society which is saying it needs constitution that, leaving aside Aristotle, because the United States itself was modeled on this society, Greece and Rome. That's where it is modeled itself. So in its constitution, it's saying that all men are created equal. All men are created equal. And they are claiming to a certain extent that the blacks are men, they are full human beings, and yet they're being segregated. So this question continues to linger on and continues to occur. So even today, as we speak, Biden is in Angola, right? Now they are building a railway platform. They are rehabilitating, they are not actually building a railway platform that is aimed at extracting Africa's resources. And this is even in the mainstream media. They have stopped actually beating a bush around it. They have stopped, hiding what the intention of this railway platform is. And so this is how this form of slavery has continued on, that this group of people thinks that they are some sort of masters on the global stage, even though, of course, this followed there has been the refining from slavery, segregation, up to now, the subtle slavery that is happening today, that we are called the human beings. On the global stage, they claim that these people are human beings, and therefore we care about their human rights. They preach to us that we have human rights. But at the same time, they want to take our possessions and treat us like we are not human beings. 2022, at the US-Africa Summit in December, Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia signed a memorandum of understanding. In it, the US was supposed to help the Democratic Republic of Congo and Zambia to set up a supply chain for the refining of copper and cobalt so that they can make the motors which are going to be used in these electric vehicles, which is going on, which is an electric vehicle revolution that is going on in the transport sector globally. But noticeably, in that particular MOU, the United States inserted a quote which said that this MOU is not binding. Is not binding to the United States. And of course, the Democratic Republic of Congo President Felix Tshisekedi and Ichilema signed on that particular MOU. And so even today we saw them, a few days ago when they started, they're talking about the Lobito Railway Corridor, but the United States continues to take the resources which belong to us. So they look at us as slaves who don't possess. And of course, here we are talking about your possession. How can someone be a human being and yet a possession? They possess us, so they think that they possess us, and they're supposed to tell us what to do. Because if you don't think that you possess someone, then you should not be telling them what to do. You should not be coming and preaching to them and stuff like that. So this is how this has continued. But Nkrumah is saying, and of course, as the purpose of writing this book in concisism is to articulate to us or to show us that these people are not perfect, and therefore their thinking on what it means to be a human should be challenged. And this is how actually people like Dr. Martin Luther King challenged them. So we should not just sit aside, but we should challenge them even at the United Nations and say, you people are saying that humans are equal. We are all human beings. You talk about human rights, but why are you possessing our assets? Why are you exploiting our assets without our consent, without the consent of the African people? Why are you conniving with some elements that you have installed in power to possess us as a people? Because when you possess our resources, you are possessing our livelihood and you are possessing us. You are taking what belongs to us. We are going to die. We are slaves. You are making us slaves. And yet, on top of it, on top of the world, at the United Nations, in all these organizations, you are saying that we are human beings. We are equal. All of us are equal in the world. So I believe that this is what it shows on the international stage, and we have to challenge this. We have to challenge this, and of course, we have to build a new society as Africans, and that society cannot be built if we don't strengthen the African continent and unify it. I think this is what Nkrumah is trying to show us here. Thank you very much,
Brother Gonza.
Yes, please.
Now, when the first line, the first sentence in that paragraph says, man, says Aristotle, aims at the good. The question is, can a slave, according to Aristotle's thinking and understanding, can a slave who is denied basic freedoms and opportunity truly be said to be aiming at that good life?
So I think that this question can also be answered in the question, does Aristotle really think that a slave is a man? That's another question which you want to ask
That's
yourself.
what I wanted you to
To what extent does Aristotle think that a slave is a man?
That's where I wanted you to come to. That's why
so we don't know now what is in Aristotle's mind. What is Aristotle's conclusion on a slave being a man? And at what stage in Aristotle's mind does all Greek society at what stage does Greek society and Aristotle think that a slave will become a man? Is it when a slave has possessed so much wealth and stuff like that? I think that one there, we need to interrogate Aristotle's mind at that particular moment in history and Greek society itself. And so what I'm saying is that this mindset has continued to live on in the minds of the Western world.
Yeah, sorry, can I come in there?
Yes, I want you to come in, Brother Kwame.
Yeah, Brother Gonza, you've missed a few of our discussions. So the question, what is Aristotle's mind? We know because we have dealt with it already. We know what his mind is. We know what he thinks. Those were in the previous paragraphs that we looked at. Sorry, there's a lot of noise where I am, so I'll have to go silent. I only speak when I have to. Yeah, so thank you.
So what I was saying is that this mindset, I think that Aristotle's mindset has continued to live on even in the Western world, in the mindset of the Western world and how it is operating and how it is treating us today. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. I'll not ask you much on that, but I want us all to think about it. That in a current state where we are in the continent, there are people who live with no absolute basic rights or basic necessities. There are people who live in whatever we call slums or ghettos. People who don't have even access to water or housing. Now, in our own society, in our own judgment, are we really seeing that those people also ought to aim for good? And we think that lack or that status of a society they live in is the good that they aim at, that they aim that they are good in life, that they aim at is that kind of life that they live in slums and everything else. is what we as a society think those people deserve to, or what you think that's good for those people. Some will claim that people who live in slum, like when government tried to build houses in one of the slums in Kenya, the people from the slums refused to leave their slum houses or slum dwelling to the new houses the government were building. And people said, some people love poverty, so they stay there because they love it. Really, can that be their good that they aim in life? This is just a question I'm asking.
Yeah, so for me, King Pigeon, Comrade Pigeon, for me, that question, I can answer it that everyone aims for good, including the people who live in those bad conditions. But the social structure which is created around society, because these people are not independent from the system that drives the whole society. So these people are being pushed in those particular conditions because of the structure of society. So if society is a slave society, it pushes those people in those conditions and they become slaves. Just like the people who are in slums, they are almost complete slaves by the standards of today's society, because they go and work for people, sweep and stuff like that. You know, the low menial jobs. These are complete slaves in society, but it doesn't mean that they don't aim for good. Some of the smartest people, you find them in this society. But these people, they can't be said that, oh, they are not smart. Even some of the smartest people, you find that they come from this society. So they also aim good, I believe.
So it means our society is still looking like this Greek society. Our
Absolutely.
current African society.
Absolutely. For me,
absolutely.
Like absolutely.
Okay. Thank you. Let me get to Brother the King Mauli. Sisters are not here. So I see Sister Ed alone. If there's any sister around, let me know. But African Research Institute is Brother Hegel, Professor Hegel. Brother the King, can you share your thinking? Then I'll go to Sir Windhoek, and then Brother Kwajo was also here early enough. Brother
okay, comrade. Okay, right. So what will happen is I'm really enjoying the conversation, but for this one, I will have to let it pass.
I won't allow you to enjoy. We ask you to share with us.
I have to also contribute. I will at the subsequent one going forward.
Okay, but okay, please ensure that before you leave, you share your thinking. As you enjoy it, it will be so interesting.
I will do that. Thank you very much, comrade.
Thank you. Sir Windhoek. Then I'll go to Brother Kwajo. Sir Windhoek.
Good evening.
Proceed, sir. Good evening.
If Aristotle says the principle of order in a political system is justice, is it justice for the unenslaved, or is it universal justice? But because I think justice for the enslaved and justice for the unenslaved is not the same.
So you're asking us the question.
Who can help me there? Yes, please.
Brother Kwame, are you here to help? Please, Brother Kwame, if you are around, or I'll ask Brother Carrington to also help. Brother Carrington, the question Sir Windhoek is asking is simple. Is the justice for the enslaved and the justice for those slave masters the same in this society, the political society which Aristotle is talking about?
It cannot be. It cannot be, because of the way the society is organized, the way the laws of the society are organized. Slaves obey your masters. The justice for the slave master is to be obeyed. And the justice of the slave is to expect a good master. It cannot be the same.
Okay. Now, in this political society, which is here, according to Aristotle, the principle of order in a political society is justice, the bond of men in states. So in this particular sentence, does it appear that Aristotle is excluding the slaves who to him may not appear to be men enough?
So, Sir Windhoek can expound.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that elaboration. That's what I wanted to get. Slaves.
Okay.
Men enough.
Yes, Brother Sir Windhoek, proceed.
No, I just wanted to emphasize that you kept me well by asking that question: are slaves men enough to be men?
Now, let's look at it in another way. Let's reverse it. In this political system in Africa, are all men actually pursue the same justice in these political setups in the current African state? For example, what will the political justice look like? But of course, with their so-called democracy, where they say all men have ability to vote, with one vote, you can vote. But the second question is, are all men or women, in this case, are all human beings able to vie for various positions? And you find there's a limitation. I've presented this in the past, where there is actually a limit of who should vie for a president or who should vie for what, but there's also actually an age gap of who should vote. How do that play in society? Does it mean that when you put an age cap, does it mean other people are not men enough to make decisions or to rule in a society? And was that also part of our practice? So these are just questions to ponder around. If you feel to come in and help in answering some of them as we move along, feel free.
Let me come in. It's Gonza here. So I think that
Yes,
in all ages, in European, since European civilization or European enlightenment, what they have tried to do is to create a perfect society. And that perfect society is where all men pursue justice equally, the same justice. Now, the problem has been that justice, even though everyone pursues the same, and of course, at least the political systems which have come about have claimed to dispense that justice. It has that justice, which, equally, that justice has not been dispensed equally due to certain interest groups which have captured the political system, in various cases. And of course, that is where people like Marx, with Marxism, came out to try to interpret the political systems of the world, that workers should rise up because the capitalists had captured the political system. And therefore,
Gonza,
yes.
Now, how can a society that allow for the enslavement of human beings be considered to be a just political society?
No, so it is not just because, and that is what Marx tries to grapple with, and even that is what Nkrumah is grappling with, because remember that why Nkrumah is struggling to interpret this for us as Africans is because he wants us to correct the society. That is why he came. That is why people like Dr. Martin Luther King came, to try to correct society and create a perfect society. Because somewhere along the line, places like the United States, which had claimed that they had created a perfect society, they had, enslaved almost half of their population, which are the people of African descent. And Nkrumah also sees this by extension as the enslavement of the global South. So then it has to be a struggle. And Nkrumah is writing to us to inform us that we have to continue the struggle. We have to continue to struggle to create that perfect society. But that society, unlike how it is being interpreted in the West, just like he opens this book, and I think it is not in this book, I think it was in The Political and Social Thought of Kwame Nkrumah, where he says, no, I think it is in this particular book where I read it. He's talking about that a student of a colonial society, colonial system.
That is this book.
Who belongs to a colonial system must not succumb to the interpretation, of society from a colonial perspective. We should avoid that. So
yes,
he is telling us that we as Africans, then we have to step out from the interpretation of by the West, by the United States, and come and reinterpret our society in our own way. So their outlook on society, which is hypocritical, okay, because it says humans are full humans, but then goes around and enslaves a group of humans. So he's telling us that we should actualize what it really means to be a human, and we should fight for it. And that fighting, he sees it in the unification of Africa, because that way we'll get power to be able to fight these overwhelming forces that have been built up from outside. So this is what I'm saying.
Thank you, Brother Gonza. Let me get to Brother Kwajo. Brother Kwajo? Kelly, welcome to our class. I know maybe it's your first time,
Yes.
second, but feel free to share with us your thinking and also to share with us what you think.
Okay, good evening, House. And yes, it is my first time here. And in terms of the book, I have not actually read the book yet, but this is, I'm in the process of actually doing so. But from this statement alone, I think looking at it, I'm taking it in two folds. One is that we have been defined what a slave is, and in a nutshell, it's just basically saying that um, if viewing a slave as having no rights and a possession, and you are possession, then therefore being able to be idle and allow things to happen to you as a human being, you are actually putting yourself in that state of mind. And from the other side, he's basically saying that Nkrumah is saying that we need to stop that slave thinking, because if thinking as a slave, therefore you have no right in your possession, you need to elevate yourself from being a slave and to think outside of that. How can you not become a slave? How can you not become a possession? By being able to define your own rules and your own rights, and therefore you need to fight for your right and to not allow others to dictate to you. So effectively, that's what I'm seeing from this statement.
Thank you, Brother Kwayo. And feel most welcome. We look forward to have you more and more.
Thank you.
Let's get to Brother Kweku.
Hello and yes, hello and greetings, everyone.
Greetings.
It is my first time, and also I joined pretty late. But I must say, I'm very glad to be amongst you and to be listening to our elders and everything that you have to say. Conscientialism, I've not read also, but looking at the current state globally, I think even the West is even struggling with their own interpretation of who is right or who is equal. We know the current issues globally is the LGBTQ, whatever they call it. That somebody can get up today and say, I feel like this, and that is my right. Whether I'm under 16 or I'm above 20, this is how I feel. And then a lot of the countries are saying, yes, the person have the right to do so. I'll tell you a story. Last 2 weeks here in Sweden, a case came up that a lady wants to change her first name to that of marijuana. Okay, so if previously she was Abigail Johnson, now she wants to be called Marijuana Johnson. And the state authority that takes care of name changes says no. That is an illegal name you cannot use. So they've gone to court that it is her right to decide what she wants to call herself. So on this note, I'll align with Nkrumah's statement that we should come back home to the continent and define these things per our own society, how our great ones were brought up and how they were living. Because even the West that is interpreted to us are struggling with yes. So we don't have to buy into that, but rather come home to do things on our way and on our terms. So this is the little I can say about it. And I think it is about time that we look into the continent to do the things on our way than the West that we see as perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kweku. Brother Kwame, do you want to come in?
Yeah, I wanted to make one or two comments. So, brother, sorry, there is a tannoy above me. So, yeah, so I'm very sorry about that. So, two things. So, brother Kweku and brother Kwejo, just so you know, you're not reading Constantism, the book. Please, you're not the first, you will not be the last. Don't worry about that. Professors of philosophy, even in Ghana at the time Nkrumah was alive, did not read it. In fact, some people thought that it was Nkrumah that wrote it. Some say it was written for him by Jews or by Israelis. Others did not believe that he was capable of writing it, and so on and so forth. So please don't be apologetic that you haven't read it. All of us here, maybe I'm the only one here who has read the whole book. Everybody here has joined because they want to read it and they want to be part of reading it and so on. Having said that, please remember that all of us here are equal. Whether you've read it or not, we are all equal. And the reason we are equal is that we are equal because of our humanity and also because we are sharing our thinking. And when you are sharing your thinking, you have a right to think what you like. So we are not saying that even when you read something that's on the screen, for instance, that you should agree with it or disagree with it. You are free to disagree. But what we ask is that because this is a class, just share with us why you disagree. Now that's the second point. And the third point I want to make is that let's not forget why we are reading what we are reading. Just remember that the church at the time haven't jettisoned Plato, embraced Aristotle. So the question we have to be asking ourselves is why? Why did the church embrace Aristotle? That's the first thing. Second, the chapter that we are reading is philosophy and society. So let's remember that what we are reading is how at the time a certain philosophy, Aristotelian philosophy, was used to run society. And as some of you have acknowledged, for example, Bra Dagonza has acknowledged, this very notion that that some people are that it's okay to enslave some people. This kind of thinking is still going on right now. So in as much as we are reading this with respect to what happened in the past, in terms of how in their time they used philosophy to run society, every society has a philosophy, and the philosophy at the time is what we are reading here. But as we've acknowledged, some of you have anyway, this philosophy still applies today. So I just saw the comments I want to make. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Let's get to, thank you for those reminder. Actually, you put it directly back to the trajectory, to the new members who are with us here to understand why we do this and where we are. SUP Ghana, please feel free to unmute yourself and share your thinking with us and let us know maybe what's your name. SUP Ghana?
Can you hear me?
Yes, please proceed. No, you are very low. Come
all right,
closer
so
to...
let me get out and come in again. Thank you.
Okay, it's okay. So let me go through my list again. Check who is missing. Africa Research Institute, he has actually said that he's on the road, so he will not share. Yeah, Sawindok, please free to come. Sawindok.
Yes, man, I'm thinking a little bit awkward. The mere fact that us and as Africans have given our resources to other people, the West specifically, will it connote that we are slaves? Because it's just a handful who have decided to give our resources. Did they enslave themselves, the political leaders, and in the process enslave us, the ordinary people, as well? If it is the case, is anybody in Africa man enough to be men?
Thank you for this question. Is anybody man enough to be man?
Sorry, I didn't hear the
Definitely.
question. Sorry, I went off. What was the question?
Salindo can come in. Again.
Yeah, what was the question?
I was trying to ask, our resources, natural resources, are not for the benefit of Africa, are for the benefit of the French, the Germans, the Americans, and the WHO. And it is not with my consent, and it is not with your consent. Those people who have given our resources, the political leaders, have they enslaved themselves to the West and alike, and in the process automatically enslaved as the ordinary people? If the question is yes to that effect, are all Africans men enough to be men?
Sorry, what does that question mean? You said, are they man enough to be men? What do you mean? I don't understand the question.
I think I understand it. Let
Are
me
we?
Thank
you.
So he's asking the fact that Africans have left their resources to be used by others and to benefit others. The question is asking now, can we conclude that Africans are men? The fact that they have not been able to use their resources, their own resources for their own benefit or our own benefit. That is the question that he's asking.
Okay, so what does the question mean? Because
so what
Africa is not, hold on, Africa doesn't only have men, it has women as well.
No, of course.
Hold on. So it's a question, is it a question of our humanity? Because there are males and there are females. So I want to understand the question.
Okay, let me help a bit.
Men meaning
human beings.
Proceed, sir.
I mean men in this context meaning human beings, both male and female.
Okay, so that we've had. So rephrase your question again with that understanding, so that we are clear what your question is.
I can't phrase it better. Seriously, I've even forgotten the context.
Maybe he's asking, are we still slaves? In Aristotle's context.
Let me come in a bit and help.
Now, you see, the reason I'm asking is that we recognize that when the word man is used, sometimes it's used in a sense that it forgets that there is also the female part of the man. Africa cannot be liberated without the women. If we think that the continent can be liberated without women playing their part, then we don't understand. So it has to be men and women side by side playing their part. For those of you who know the history, when Nkrumah arrived in Ghana, and then the Gold Coast, women played a decisive role. I don't want to go into that so much, but those of you will know that it is women that led the organization to build him his private house, which he then donated to the state. In the north of Ghana, where people were walking naked, it was Hannah Kujo, a woman, that led the drive to clothe women in the north. So let's remember that without women, men will be maybe even half the army. You can't have an army that has only men. It used to be the case in the past that people thought women couldn't fight. We've seen that women can fly aircrafts, women can do whatever the men can do, women can also do. So you can't have an army now that is only full of men. That in a way in modern warfare anyway. So let's bear that. So when we are using the language, let's be mindful of the language we are using, because women have have to be respected as women and equally because we're all equal. So that's why I'm asking that question. When you say so men have to be men, well, what do you exactly mean? Because if you take Haiti, for instance, the sort of Haiti, without the women, they wouldn't have been able to win that war. And if you take any liberation struggle, if you leave out the women, you can't win. Men alone cannot win a liberation struggle. That's the point I mean. So let's be mindful of the language. That's all I'm saying. Am I making sense?
Yes, I understand
Yeah.
you, Brother Kwame. Now, Brother Kwame, in this context, the first sentence starts by saying man. That man, of course, to our understanding, is of both gender. But he says, man aims at the good.
But you see, when the word man is used, some have argued that it's referring to humanity. That is both male and female. That's what some have argued. But we also know that there is misogyny. There is a lot of misogyny. There is a fundamental disrespect for women in Western culture. We know that. Women are not treated equally as men in Western culture. We know that. So when the word man is used in texts, what they really mean is the male. They don't mean women. They mean the male. So I'm just saying let's be mindful of that. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, so let me then get to the question Brother Windhoek was asking. Now, man, in our context, use it for both gender, aims at the good. Now, taking it back to the question Sir Windhoek was asking, if we in Africa are giving our resources not for our good, but for the good of the West, do that mean that we don't aim at our good that Aristotle is talking in the first place? And therefore, if Aristotle defined man to aim at the good, do we need to be man enough in that context to aim at the good, which means by preserving our resources for ourselves?
Hold on, but we cannot. I don't think that question is correct. Is right, because as far as I know, the people have not made any such decision. The people have not decided that they would like their resources to be used for the benefit of foreigners. It is the neo-colonialists who, without authority from the people, who have made that decision. Yeah, and let's remember that some of these people are also thieves, and they use the resources of the community for their personal benefit. So we know that. We know that our leaders steal the resources of the people. They privatize national assets for their private use. So I don't think it's right to say that the people that we have decided, I have not made any such decision. I gave nobody any such power. And the majority of the people who own the land, by the way, have not made any such decision. So I think what we need to be in that sense, what we need to be asking ourselves is, how do we inspire, encourage, organize the people so that they can take back that right. I think that's what. So yeah. So it is yeah. So how do we get back that right? That for me is the question. Because they have no such right to do what they have done. And in getting back that right, the votes of both men and women is crucial.
Can't we not go the anarchism? The anarchism way?
Anyway, I think I've contributed a lot,
Thank
so I'll pause here so that others can also
I
share their
think
thinking.
that, for me, I think that to answer his question, are Africans or human beings or men, if they have not been able to. I think his question was trying to capture us as a group. He was not trying to divide the leaders from the African people, but he is talking about all Africans as a group. Why have we? He's grappling with this question, or he's being troubled with this question. Why have we not been able for us to liberate. If the Chinese have done it, why have we not been able to do it? That our resources now continue to benefit others apart from us. And for me, the answer to this is the understanding of course, what Nkrumah is trying to do is to break down all these, because this book and all Nkrumah's works, they are the answers to this question that you are grappling with. Because Nkrumah is trying to simplify the whole situation for you so that you can understand. And if you read all his works, or majority of his works, like how Professor Kwame describes, for example, Africa Must Unite, Neocolonialism, the last stage of imperialism, and you read Conservatism, I think this question for you to come very clear. But for me to answer it for you here, simply, it is because a system was created. And like I said, these people who are interpreting what humanity is, they are struggling all the way from Greece to Rome and all the way up to the United States. But at the same time, within these particular societies, there's still elements of slavery within those particular systems. And so that's why we got people like Marx and his Marxism who came to try to interpret that, okay, it is the capitalists who are the problem. All right. So this is how he saw it, that if people want to liberate themselves, the workers should rise up against the capitalist system and overthrow it. So you have these interesting groups. Now, these interesting groups, they took on an international nature, a globalized nature. They globalized themselves to control all the resources of the world. All right, starting with the scramble for Africa, and then later on taking over the Caribbean and all these countries. So these interesting groups, they globalize themselves and they have so much power, which Nkrumah calls neocolonialism now, later on when he becomes the president. And he said that the forces, actually described the forces in one of the speeches, that the forces arrayed against Africa are so, they are so huge and enormous, they are formidable. He used the word formidable. All right. So these forces, for us to overcome them, we could not overcome those forces with the disintegrated Africa. And that is why Nkrumah said that the newly independent Africa, the capitalist system, the system which I'm talking about, that this system is so huge for newly independent African states to deal with it alone. That's what Nkrumah said. They are too weak, they cannot deal with it. So that is the system which is still existent today, that we needed a unified force. And that is why he was fighting so hard for us to unify. So we have not achieved that phase of unification for us to be able to deal with this sophisticated system. China was able to unify in 1949, and it has been able to deal with this kind of complicated system by building strong institutions which are able to protect its society. We failed to do that. So the small states which we have, they cannot stand up, against such an overwhelming force, an organized force and group. So this is where we are. It's not that the Africans don't want. So now what we have to do, that he left us, is to build on that and build that system. That's the work we are supposed to do.
But thank you, Brother Gonza. Permit me to give space for some 3 to 4 people who have joined us who have spoken before we go back to our general comments. I don't want to leave anybody out. Brother Kwame?
Yes, and also just to let you know, Brother Pigeon, that you need to hear from everyone so that you hear their thinking on this paragraph. Yeah. Thank
that's why I have 4 people join us late, and I want to get through. Yes, Brother Gonza, we can also go the handbook for revolutionary welfare way, if that's possible, but or if that's necessary. So we have Brother Kwajo or Kwado Yebo. I think he's from Africa Continental Unity Party. Comrade, were you the one who was with us using the SUP Ghana?
Yes, please. Can you hear me begin?
Yeah, now I can hear you. So please proceed and share your thinking with us. Then after you, I'll go to the comrade who has joined with the name Africa. Please change your name then, General Anunnaki. Those are the ones remaining in the list.
Yeah, Brother Pigeon. Brother Kwajo, just before you speak, I want to remind us all that there was an agreement between ourselves and ACUP, and that CSG will operate as their philosophical arm. So I just want to remind us all. So it's nice to have ACUP members with us.
Yeah, that
So
agreement was actually proposed by Brother Kwame Stevens back then, but we don't know
precisely,
if it still stands with the new team of.
as far as I know, it still stands. So if Brother Kweju and others are here, Brother Gonza is here, they can go back and come back and tell us whether it still holds. That's all. So thank you.
Yeah, Brother
All right.
Kweju, please share your thinking in regards to the text.
Thank you very much. And I think a lot of ACUP strategic team members are here. I can see Brother Kweku and Brother Kwajo Bawa, Brother King Gonza, and myself. So I think as we move forward, we will have more and more members, because we need this kind of thought, mental revolution in our way. It has to light our way, and it should be able to guide us to be able to do what we are doing. So thank you so much. Trust me, I have really enjoyed the discussion. And the back and forth argument, which, not to say argument, but deliberation on the topic, which helps us to have a good understanding. But I'm just taking mine from the latest one, which our chairperson indicated that Africans have not, the majority of Africans have not decided to be slaves or to be giving our work, our resources to the neo-colonialists. But if we have not agreed to do so, but we are not capable, I don't know if that will still make us qualify as slaves. Because in the paragraph, you understand that it says that the Aristotle usually taught, not justice, according to the paragraph, is I'm using a small phone, so I cannot really see to read, but where he's talking about everything centered on justice, you realize that if we are talking about, I don't know if the class has already gone back, where does justice come from? If justice does not come from nature, if justice does not come from nature, or justice does not exist in nature, then my question will be, where does it, if justice originates from men, can we be expecting justice if we don't work for it? So in my thinking, I believe that Africa, so to say, maybe at this particular point in time, we can qualify to call ourselves as slaves, not a slave of will, but a slave of incapacity. So in this situation, I believe that we have a lot of work to do, and we need to have that we have a huge fight to fight. So thank you very much.
Brother Kwame, can you answer the question Brother Kwajo was trying to raise on the origin of
I
slavery?
think, Brother Kwejo, I think that so I think we have to be clear when we use words. So a slave has a definition. There is a definition for who a slave is, and there are different apart from the definition, there are different types of slaves. So for instance, there's something called chattel slavery, where you are somebody else's property. But not all slave forms or forms of slavery were that. So as a Ghanaian, I wouldn't call myself a slave. And Kwame Nkrumah would not encourage us to see ourselves as slaves. Why? Because in international law, if you take Ghana, for instance, Ghana is an independent and sovereign state in international law. And people who belong to that state are citizens of that state. So we are citizens of a free and independent sovereign state in international law. Therefore, we don't qualify to be defined, if you see what I mean, as slaves. But I think what you are getting at is whether our state of life can be, when we look at our existence, is there. Can can we say that the way in which our people live is akin to the way enslaved people live? In other words, if you look at the life of the ordinary person, is it any different from the way a slave lived or lives? So that is the question. Now, the fact that your life or our life or somebody's life is akin to that of a slave does not mean logically that therefore they are slaves. Yeah. So 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 for those who for those who are even amongst the rich, there are those who are richer. You see what I mean? And amongst the poor, there are those who are poorer. So there are levels of poverty, and so on. So the fact that your one's life is in terms of the physical existence, the house in which you live, whether you have access to water, whether you have access to education, whether your children have access to schools, whether you have access to decent transport, whether you have a work, whether you are employed or you are self-employed or even own your own business and so on. If we look at all these metrics and we say that, right, our life is no different from those who are enslaved, it still doesn't mean you are an enslaved person. Yeah. So I want to make that clear. That the phase in which we are as Africans is that if you look at the 4 stages of liberation that Nkrumah talked about, if you remember, the first stage when they left Manchester in 45 was that go back to the colonial territories and fight for freedom. Yeah. So Nkrumah Nkrumah returned to the Gold Coast. Banda returned went to Malawi, what is now Malawi. Jomo Kenyatta went to Kenya, and so on and so forth. So they went to fight for independence. Now, so that was the first stage. The second stage was that the independent states will start to interact together. Yeah. And that's the second stage. They interact, and then in their interaction, they liberate other states who were also then under colonialism. Yeah. Then no second. Then the third stage was that they then formed a communion of states, and then the final stage is when we are now united, and so on. So let's bear that in mind, that we are still at the stage where there is a lot of communion within amongst Africans, but we are still not united. Yeah. So I just thought I would clarify that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. But just also to get back to what you've said, actually, Nkrumah is providing it here by saying a man cannot be discovered to be a slave through an examination of his nature.
Yeah, so, but as you know, I also still believe that some people were slaves by nature, and yes. I think we've discussed that at length, and we agree that he was wrong. Brother Carrington, even though he agreed with, he thought, brother, shall I call him brother Aristotle's position was correct. It's just that it's just that he misapplied the system.
Brother Kwame, yes. This is the third time you are saying about Carrington accepting and he refuses.
Yeah. So the thing is that, and it is very important, this point I was trying to make, that you can arrive at the correct philosophy and misapply it, and the effect will be exactly the same on society, i.e. horrible results. We had a philosophy of African socialism in Kenya, which was misapplied, developed by Thomas Joseph Mboya, a little bit of collaboration with Kwame Nkrumah, I think, and the African National Congress. Brother Pigeon, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it was misapplied. It was misapplied in the Kenyan context, and it worked horribly for us. So it is important to get the correct philosophy.
Yeah, but you know why, don't you?
I understand.
Because there is no such thing as African socialism. In theory, it doesn't exist. There is only one socialism. Okay, and you can apply that to Africa, right? But the idea that there were some African leaders who said there was something called African socialism. Nyerere was one of them.
Yes.
And you know that Nyerere himself said it took him 10 years to understand what Nkrumah was talking about.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So I wanted to come to that to connect that. Yes, brother, what Brother Kwame is saying is very important here, that you cannot define someone to be a slave because of his nature, basically the surrounding of where he lives. As he was saying, despite of us living in a poor condition and poor state of life, doesn't make us slaves. Yes, we live in that type of life, but that do not make you or make anyone feel as we are slaves. But I see Brother Kwado said that he's leaving to the next meeting. But just to emphasize, we have also started a new Kiswahili class courtesy of ACUP request. So that shows that we are committed to see how we can work together. And we're looking forward to a synergy, Pan-African Synergy Movements conference probably this Saturday, where we want to see how we can unite various Pan-Africans and work together, where we can complement and see how we can contribute to each other's struggle so that we can start uniting as we move towards the unity of our people. So we are happy, Brother Kwajo, for the partnership we are creating, and we are open enough for any Pan-African movement and any Pan-African organization ready to see how we can work together towards this journey of our liberation, unification, and development. Brother Kwame?
Yeah, I want to raise a theoretical question that I want us out to consider. So under slavery in the US anyway, as we know it, there was what was called the house. I don't want to use the N word, but the house slave, and there was a field slave, and the house slave lived in the house, and sometimes lived and had access to the amenities of the house, just like the master. But the field slave did not have that level or quality of life, and they worked in the fields and did all the dirty work, and they lived in outhouses. Question: does it mean because the house slave, enjoyed the amenities as the master, does that mean that he wasn't a slave or she wasn't a slave? So you can apply the wrong system and arrive at the same results as a correct system. It doesn't mean that the system was correct. That's what I'm trying to point out. So just because you apply a wrong system and arrive at the same result, in the sense that if somebody was free, they will also be living. So a white person that was alive during that time, yeah, the house slave could have been having a better life than a white person in that society. Yeah, you understand? And yet, the system, the bad system has been applied, but the result is good for that person. Yeah. So let's be mindful of that. That just because a bad system arrives at the same result as a good system, therefore the system is good. No. In the same way as a good system can also lead to bad results. And that's we've discussed this before. You recall, it's something called unintended consequences. So despite your good intentions and so on, it might turn out that the result is not what you set it out to be. The result will be bad, even though your intentions were good. Or the system was good. So the fact that the system is good doesn't mean to generate only good results. As dialecticians, we know that even a good system can generate dialectical results. So let's bear that in mind. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. Let's go to Brother Africa, General Lunaki. Then we have Brother Coco and Mr. D Black. Hope all of you will be able to share your thinking before we come to an end. It's very important for us to hear what you think. So, Brother Africa, please unmute yourself and let us know your name as you share your thinking in regards to this paragraph highlighted here. Africa? Okay. It seems, let me check on the chat. Okay. Brother Coco won't be able to contribute. Brother Africa, please unmute yourself. Tell us who you are or share with us your thinking. That will be very important so that we know who you are. We know, yes, you are Africa, but you might be anybody else saying Africa. It's very important to get your real identity. Okay, let me get to Brother Jaranunaki. Raspala. General, please share with us your thinking. I know you came a bit
Yes,
late.
give chance, my brother. No, let me abstain, man, because I came very late this time, you know.
Okay. Let's get to...
I think maybe I can share my thinking slightly.
Sorry, Sister. Yeah, please come back
Okay.
again.
Okay. I query why they say that man says Aristotle's aims at the good, because maybe they thought that at that time. But if we look at it now, would we say the same thing? And also because...
Sister,
Yes,
let me
sorry.
first of all correct there. It says that Aristotle is the one who said that man aims at the good. That's what Aristotle is saying. That's why it's that man, says Aristotle.
Yeah, right. So it does. Aims at the good. But I still query that that is true, because I'm not sure even now that necessary man aims at good, because it doesn't bear witness that that is so more often than not, especially on the continent. So Aristotle might say that. Thank you for correcting me on that bit. But I think
Sister
I
Ida,
think that yes.
now, do you think man aims at the good?
I've just said I don't think so, because it doesn't bear it out in life.
So you don't think that man aim for anything good? Some men are aiming for something bad.
I think more often than not, the people who have any say in a lot of things don't necessarily aim for good. I mean, we time and time elect people in the hope that they will change things politically, or that they will change things. I mean, even looking at a lot of the what do they call them, charity places. You think your money is really going to charity, only to find out that it's the people at the top who are taking large amounts out of the money that is being sent in, or are being paid large amounts. So I do wonder at that saying that man aims at the good.
But can that be their common good? You remember sometimes back there we read that a state is a union of individuals for their common good. Can whatever you call bad would be their common good in their own state? You are in a charity, you are thinking that whatever they are pursuing is wrong, but to them it's for their common good. How do you see that?
Well, but they're the ones who are benefiting, and not the people who you think you're sending money to benefit from. So that's why I'm stating that I'm not sure that first statement is right at all. Whether it's politicians, whether it's charities who have CEOs who have get large amounts of money, and or whether it's just individuals at whose work, they're meant to they're meant to be employed by the state to do good for the people of the state, and yet they don't, whether it's corruption or what. So I find this problematic. And then Aristotle's definition of what he thinks, how he thinks slavery is also another problem, because everybody uses Aristotle as a shining light for things in philosophy, and yet some of the things that he says are just so outdated that you wonder why they're still using him. So and I hear Brother Kwame. Yes,
you say they are so outdated. Does it mean that they are not in practice today? We don't practice.
Well, they are in practice today, but they're so outdated. But people use his teachings as a way to keep that outdatedness of ideas of slavery or ideas of getting other people to work for very, very little, even though they may say it's not slavery, for poverty wages then. So I think that we have a problem with what we are teaching and what we are learning. I think I'll leave it at that because I do think there's a problem. I think even what we're reading today, there's a problem with it. So thank you.
Now, how do we reconcile these problems?
Well, by discussing them, but I think we can't discuss them saying that, oh, they were problems of old, because they still exist. And it is the fact that these sort of teachings are still being taught that make it a problem as well. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate your contribution. Today you've really gone deep to
Yeah,
go to
me
text.
too. I can see that she's really grappling with the whole situation, and she has really understood what the paragraph is about.
Thank you. Let me get to Mr. D Black. Brother Costco has indicated that I don't know if you'll be able to speak. Mr. D Black, feel most welcome and feel free to share your thinking with us. I know it might be your first time joining us. Mr. D Black? D Black, are you able to unmute yourself and share your thinking with us? If no, Brother Coco, let me know if you are able to speak or share something. If not, then I'll get to Brother Kwame.
Greetings, afternoon.
Yeah, greetings. Greetings.
Yeah, I joined the meeting late, actually, so I'm not quite catching it. I just heard what Sister Ida said. Yeah, so I'll be contributing later on, possible.
Okay, feel most welcome. Better late than never. And hope next time you'll be able to join us a bit earlier.
Thank you.
Welcome. Brother Coco, are you able to share with us anything, or you are not in a position to do so? Maybe you're driving. Let me know.
Owen, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, thank you very much. Sister Ida, you're flying tonight. Well done. Just to continue from where we stopped last time, we said Aristotle didn't do much in terms of philosophizing or changing the situation as it is. He was more of a cheerleader. In fact, from what I've read, from one of our Afrocentric brothers who challenged Aristotle as a philosopher. He said Aristotle is credited with writing so many books, but at the same time, we know that Alexander the Great gave him money to buy books, which tells you that books were already existing at the time, which are said to have been authored by Aristotle.
Sorry, Brother Coco. Brother Coco, yes. It's worse than that. The man stole books from our library in Alexandria.
Yes.
Under Alexander's cover. Alexander was his student.
Absolutely. So I was just trying to pinpoint one thing which most of us wouldn't have realized that it happened. So again, we're talking about the same guy who didn't do much, yet lots of things are still credited to him. And lots of things are still being used, wrongly credited to him, to just justify something that should not be there in the first place. So it's the same case as in, do slaves really deserve justice? It doesn't say. It does not. It doesn't add up. It doesn't add up. And as Sister Ida is saying, these things are right, but they have not been changed from a long time ago. And we continue with them again because we will sometimes call them tradition or call them culture or we call them law. A law which is oppressive, it needs to be changed. I think again, we are being challenged to think outside the box. Don't just say, okay, this has been done for generations, so it has to stay. It has pass the test of time. If it's not relevant, it's not applicable, then it has to be challenged. That is the message we are getting to tonight. It's slavery is defined the way it's defined, but again, does it make it right? He doesn't make it right. It doesn't make it right. He could be right in saying a slave is someone who doesn't have control over his destiny, or control who is owned, in short. But does that make it right that he's owned? That is the question. Should he be owned, really? Should another man own another man? That's not right, and that's not egalitarian either. But people like Aristotle advocated for slavery, so in short, they made it right, and everyone else who wants to bend the rules, bend what is supposed to be right for their own benefit, will call people like Aristotle. I think that's my contribution for tonight. Thank you, comrades.
Thank you, Brother Coco. And with that, Brother Kwame, you can come in. I'll just say one word, that I feel Aristotle was just an observer who is observing a society and do not qualify to be a philosopher, because he was just a news reporter reporting news with no intention of correcting
don't say
it.
don't say that don't say that to the West too. For them, he's like their guru.
Please come in as we gear towards the
Yeah,
end.
he's their guru. No, I think I will just build on what everyone has said. You know, most recently what Sister Ida has said, Brother Coco built on that, and I will also just add that yes, that is correct, that this is still being practiced. Aristotle, for me, is a fraud. You know, his philosophy is a fraudulent philosophy. But isn't that the point, though? That's the point, isn't it? So Nkrumah is basically making bare to us. Nkrumah is revealing to us what those who came to colonize the continent, having first enslaved our brothers and sisters, and then going on to colonize our continent. This is what was basically inspiring them. That's what Nkrumah is showing us. The other thing also is that so you are saying here that during their time they used philosophy or they used this philosophy to organize the ethics in their society. Then fast forward, enslavers and colonialists are using the same. And so Nkrumah is putting before us the philosophy that we are fighting. This is the philosophy we are fighting. And Sister Ada is spot on. And Brother Coco is spot on. As others also said, this is what we are fighting. The question Nkrumah is then asking us is, if we are saying that this philosophy is not right, what is the alternative that we want to pursue? And that alternative is what we should be using in order to fight neocolonialism. So this book we are reading, if you like, the second chapter, is drawing to our attention the relationship between philosophy and society, and how philosophy is used to enslave people, to oppress people, and so on. And therefore, which one should we embrace? So when we go to chapter 3, we'll look at the relationship between now society and ideology. And then when we go to chapter 4, then we will come face to face with the philosophy that Nkrumah, if you like, used, or the Pan-Africanists used to defeat colonialism. And that is our task right now. Our task is to defeat neocolonialism. And neocolonialism is a formidable enemy. Formidable. It won't be easy, but she will be defeated. So I'll pause there. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Kwame. And thank you all who have shared their thinking with us today. I'll be brief a bit to share my thinking in 1 or 2 minutes as we come towards the end of the class. Nkrumah said that Aristotle was usually tough-minded. I either call him tough-headed, but also when you talk of his mind, it's basically in form of his society. And his justice is actually different with what we came across in justice. I think we came across the concept of social justice during analysis of Anaximander, when we came in with the social justice issue and now egalitarianism being introduced in the first place, when we read about the rule of thumb and the general rule, sometimes back then. And basically, this is what I'm getting here. So Aristotle's definition of slave being naturally is something very wrong. Doesn't mean that somebody was born to be a slave naturally. When you talk of nature makes somebody or it's natural to be a slave, that doesn't mean also it's natural to be a master. That's not the same, because you know those are not reality in life anyway. So my thinking is that I think this text was very important how Nkrumah was bringing to analyze. And this text and the previous paragraphs, the two of them, in fact the three, is now Nkrumah trying now to put his thinking in regards to critically analyze this philosophy. And that's why Nkrumah was saying what Brother Gonza was quoting, that in the first, Nkrumah introduced us to colonial students, who are then introduced to philosophies. And those philosophies then actually affected how they thought or how they carried themselves. So Nkrumah is actually examining some of the philosophies some of the colonial students were exposed to, including the works of Aristotle, as he said in the beginning, in the introduction, the works of Akina Plato and the rest. So if you were actually introduced to this Aristotle's work without somebody like Nkrumah looking at it critically, then you could have walked out of that class being Aristotle's student, being Aristotle's follower, and basically valuing him, as Brother Kwame is saying, is your guru. You could walk out of that class thinking that Plato is the greatest philosopher and have actually interacted with most of his writings. And you could still walk out of that class actually criticizing Socrates for failing to actually to an extent that he was crucified by the society. You could also crucify Socrates up to date. But it's very important that Socrates started something that was fundamental on egalitarianism. And the next predecessors are actually walking out of that and then taking as far away. So this is the importance of what I'm thinking Nkrumah is raising here. Is trying now to critically analyze those philosophies that we were introduced to, or colonial students were introduced to without question, but is giving a critical analysis that I think all of us must actually adapt that critical analysis as long as we get in touch with any text or any philosophy. So without much ado, Brother Kwame and all comrades who are present here, permit me to bring this meeting to an end by first of all appreciating all of you who have attended us and wishing and requesting you to please do not miss, because if you miss even a paragraph, there's a big gap. You see, it's only one paragraph and it takes us 2 hours, only one paragraph. So if you miss a paragraph, there's something that you have a disconnect. So please, comrades, feel free to join us next time. Get in touch with me through the link. If you found the link in any group, please text that link so that I can add it to our broadcast list so that you can continuously attend our class. If you miss the class, I'll always share our recordings and upload them on our YouTube channel. So they are all of them there. This discussion you find interesting here has been going on for over weeks and weeks. We have over 170 recordings uploaded for future references or for anybody who want to come back to them. So please feel free to go to our YouTube channel where we have all our past recordings, and feel free to join us next Thursday for our philosophy. We will go actually to the next paragraph. If you look, the next paragraph starts here, egalitarianism and all the now tactics to destroy Platonic. So all these are what we'll be looking at in the next paragraph. So don't miss out any of our texts. This Saturday, actually, we were to have a presentation on Dogan by Brother General Anunnaki, but he has requested that, of course, we will have it the next week. We are looking at the moment which Brother Gonza was talking about. How do we synergize? How do we unite various Pan-African movements to find a coalition and synergy, how they can work together? Having hosted various Pan-African groups in our Saturday class, we realized that there's something similarity. Like when you did the binary and the crypto on the blockchain for 4 weeks, we realized there's a way we can connect and interconnect with each other and build each other. We want to provide that platform to various Pan-Africans in the continent who are available to join us this Saturday to discuss the strategy together. How do we synergize? How do you know who is doing what? How do you work out and cooperate to start working together as we look forward to 2025? It's our wish that we unite, we work together so that we can together liberate the continent. And we are ready as consciousness to offer the philosophical and ideological guidance in this struggle to anybody and anyone within the continent and within the struggle and even outside the continent. So we are ready to play that part, and we believe we will be able to do our best, and we are doing our best to that end. So thank you very much, comrades. Brother Kwame?
No, it's okay. Just make the announcements and then that's it. Yeah.
Okay, so that's having been said on what we'll be doing on Saturday. On Tuesday, we have a Kiswahili class. Actually, start from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. To 8 p.m. GMT. Feel free to join us as well. And Thursday, as I've said, we go on with our reading. I don't have any more to say.
Comrade, just
Brother
a reminder, we have our meeting tomorrow on Friday. We have our meeting fortnightly, and tomorrow we have discussions on state of African diaspora.
Yeah, we are hosting new Pan-African agenda from brother Coco's group tomorrow on connection with the diaspora, and I know brother Hegel Mwash is also hosting a conference, a meeting on Saturday on the media and how media block many of the news that goes on in the continent. Brother Hegel Mwash will be hosting that. He's running an institute called Africa Research Institute. So let's see how we can now synergize and identify what we do together. So thank you very much. Brother Kwame.
So could you just tell us what time the meeting is tomorrow?
5:30 GMT.
5:30. Thank you. Thank you.
And isn't who is doing the presentation this Saturday? Is a general?
No, it's not general. General will be doing next Saturday. I'm the one who will be leading the Pan-African Synergy Conference this Saturday. You are muted, Brother Kwame.
I'm just asking. So this Saturday, what are we doing?
We are hosting an agenda on Pan-African Synergy, Pan-African Movement Synergy, the unity of Pan-African organizations to us working together as we move ahead. So I'll be like doing a prior presentation on that. But many movements will be joining us, organizations, to tell us what they're doing, how we can interconnect, and how people can interconnect. It's a platform for them to interconnect. Okay. So thank you very much, comrades. Let's meet again on Saturday, and on tomorrow I'll share also the event by Brother Coco on our Zoom, so that those who are willing can join in as well.
Okay. Many thanks. Okay. Thank you. Bye-bye, everyone.